Use Scrum only when transformative disruption is required. I posted at LinkedIn quite a while ago now. I said, do you have any questions about Scrum? Ask away and I'll respond to each question in a new thread. One of the responses came from Shalloway, who asked, where do you think is a good place to use Scrum? So I'll summarize. Use Scrum for complex work such as product development, professional services, org development, knowledge work, and use it only by agreement. I don't recommend forcing Scrum upon a team or teams. Use Scrum only when transformative disruption is required. Or use parts of Scrum if those parts prove to be better than the previous ways of working. I'll explain. Knowing that I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org, you might expect me to advocate for Scrum in all situations. I don't. I teach Scrum because I appreciate its efficacy and I respect the curiosity that people have about it. People come to me to learn about the Scrum framework, what it is, and most importantly, why is it designed the way that it is. First, let's imagine Scrum as just a set of working agreements that a group of people may adopt. These working agreements describe a cycle of planning, delivery, inspection, and adaptation. And they describe 3 common roles that must be fulfilled in the workplace. There's someone to sequence the work according to business needs, others to design and deliver the solution, and someone to dissolve obstacles and clear the path for the teams. And they describe ways to make visible the work of the future, the present, and the past, so that the team and those with a stake in their results can know what's going on and what's been done. But here's the really hard part. Scrum requires that teams be self-managing, cross-functional, and allowed to deliver small batches of high-quality product frequently into the marketplace. And in practice, those aspects of Scrum are too disruptive for most companies. True Scrum is a hardcore game. There's no easy mode. And to get the most from the framework, a team must approach it with rigor and discipline. And so, back to the question, when would I recommend Scrum? Well, my first answer is if in the DNA of the company you have self-managing cross-functional teams that deliver frequently, well, then you may already have achieved Scrum. And if the way you work resembles what's written in the Scrum guide, well then, congrats. You might call it Scrum. But my second answer, if a company is in crisis and massive disruption is needed to avoid existential collapse, well then Scrum may help. Let's think on this for a minute. For conventional enterprises, Scrum introduces friction against the resisting structures. 1, cross-functional teams. Most enterprises operate with shared service departments, or they organize their staff into same skilled groups. 2, frictionless feedback loops. But the bureaucracy of most enterprises slows down the communication between teams and stakeholders. 3, self-managing teams. But most enterprises value the division of labor and strict assignments of roles and responsibilities, while Scrum requires the integration of complementary skills. Developers volunteer for the work, nobody assigns tasks. 4, frequent delivery. Most enterprises are not configured to interact with their end users in short cycles, and they're not technologically capable of delivering frequently. But Scrum requires that the team is capable of taking new functionality into the hands of end users on a frequent cadence, in cycles not longer than 1 month, often much shorter. And I don't mean that they just release frequently, it's that they can convert ideas into functionality, like from concept to marketplace, in under a month. Scrum fundamentally challenges enterprise norms. So why would a company embrace that level of disruption? Like, the only valid reason is something like imminent bankruptcy. If an enterprise is facing an existential crisis, adopting Scrum in its purest form could serve as a radical transformation tool. However, this means shedding everything that led to the company's decline in the first place and replacing it with only the most essential Scrum practices. I'm talking about a full reset, a drastic move for dire circumstances. Let's think about an analogy. Maybe you've watched Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay. Think about Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen. I'm going to assume you've watched a few episodes. Think about it. The pressure is relentless. The feedback is immediate. Failure demands rapid adaptation. The contestants on the show learn to coordinate and deliver under extreme conditions. And, Gordon Ramsay swears a lot, and that's good for a TV audience. I would hope that the members of a Scrum team are more respectful. But let's notice the intensity and the rapid learning that occurs. Each meal served is like a product backlog item. Each dinner service and each episode is like a sprint. The fast feedback leads to rapid team building. Every failure requires a change in behavior. But hey, it's not for everyone. Most enterprises are not prepared for that level of disruption, nor do they even need it. So back to the question, when would I recommend that we try pure Scrum? Only when a company's DNA is already wired for cross-functional teams and frequent delivery, etc., or when a conventional bureaucracy is on the verge of an existential crisis and deep disruption is required. Like, hey everyone, we're 8 months from bankruptcy and we have a Hail Mary idea. Who's in? But let's alter the question a little. When would I recommend that you study Scrum? And my answer is always and for everyone. You see, the design of Scrum is based on empirical process control theory. In brief, Scrum helps people understand how empiricism can be practiced in the workplace. And the parts of Scrum can be implemented incrementally, and they might produce incremental improvement. Now, a brief word about empiricism. Empiricism asserts that we can make decisions based on what is known. So rather than conjecture or wishful thinking or hope, faith, opinion, we can navigate complex problems by making information as transparent as possible so that people can inspect their circumstance accurately, so that they can adapt accordingly. What's the alternative? We can guess what the future holds. We can imagine a future state of the product. We can make a plan to there from here and then not change the plan. That's absurd. We all know that we will course correct along the way as new information arises and as crucial variables are discovered. So Scrum is a model designed for that context, to enable new information, to enable us to adapt to that new information as rapidly and as inexpensively as possible. And I encourage everyone to study Scrum so that you can steal the best parts of the model that have positive impact in your workplace. Maybe the daily Scrum is a great way for the team to plan for collaboration each day. Maybe the definition of done is a concept that helps your team to make quality more transparent. Maybe sprint reviews are a great way to ensure that your key stakeholders are aware of what's going to market. Now, if you implement only parts of Scrum, the result is not Scrum. But so what? The results might be positive. Here are 2 examples. Let's consider a growing startup, facing chaos. Imagine a startup that has grown from a handful of employees to a team of 40. Transparency is breaking down. Processes are becoming inconsistent. When the company was 12 people, everyone knew what was going on, but communication and transparency require more effort now. Some team members want more structure. The founders want to prevent early onset bureaucracy. Scrum's lightweight structure and regular cycles of planning and review can help maintain agility without compromising the processes. In this case, parts of Scrum could serve as a stabilizing influence. Just enough structure to enable growth, but still allowing lots of autonomy for each team and individual. Or let's consider Another example, the challenge of managing a very large multinational enterprise. Let's imagine the company have teams across different time zones, employees transferring between offices, and they need to quickly integrate into other teams. If different regions work under completely different models, then collaboration becomes difficult. Imagine a person working in the Calgary office and they have to travel and spend a few months in the Tokyo office. Or a team in Dallas should collaborate with a team in Panama. Wouldn't it be nice if they can immediately be productive together, knowing that they share some working agreements, like a cadence for planning and delivery, frequent demonstrations? Or they have similar team structures that include a product manager, developers, and a process facilitator, maybe called a Scrum Master. Here, a company might support Scrum as a default working model, but not mandate it. Or like encourage teams to adopt shared practices. The teams remain free to adapt as needed, but maybe a common baseline exists. Now, I'm not one to want sweeping regulations and blanket policy. I abhor those things. But it's not inappropriate, and it's still quite libertarian, that a chief executive officer may express support, not enforce, but express support for a pattern library across the organization. So here's the bottom line. Would I recommend Scrum? Sometimes yes, but more importantly, I recommend studying it. Understand its principles. Decide whether full Scrum or parts of Scrum would be helpful. Parts of Scrum can help mitigate chaos. Full Scrum can drive radical transformation in crisis. Hey, thanks for the question. For those of you watching, thanks for tuning in and listening. If you have any thoughts, please drop them in the comments below. Subscribe, write to me. Let's stay in touch. Let's discuss. Thank you.